canine dog disobeys orders. What he smelled in her backpack stunned everyone. The train station was packed. People rushed by, dragging suitcases, checking phones, holding coffee. Announcements echoed overhead, calling out train departures. In the middle of it all stood Agent Neil Carter, dressed in a DHS uniform, his badge clipped to his vest. At his side sat Griffin, a large German shepherd with alert eyes and a calm, steady posture. Griffin was Neil's partner. Trained in detecting drugs, explosives, and dangerous people, he had never failed a mission. Neil trusted him with his life. Still, today, Neil felt uneasy, and he wasn't sure why. They were patrolling Midway Terminal, a big train station in the Midwest. It wasn't unusual for them. Neil and Griffin had been through places twice as busy. But today, something felt off. Then it happened. Griffin suddenly stood up. His ears perked. His body stiffened. Neil followed his gaze. About 20 feet away, a woman in a red coat was walking fast, holding the hand of a little girl who looked no older than 6. The girl had a small pink backpack and clutched something yellow in her other hand. Next to them walked a tall man in a dark jacket, guiding a quiet boy around 7 or 8. The children looked clean and calm, but they also looked disconnected. Neil noticed how the boy stared at the ground, never making eye contact. The girl didn't speak or even glance up. And that yellow thing in her hand? It was a crumpled paper crane. Griffin let out a low growl. Not loud, but enough, Griffin. Heel, Neil said calmly. Giving the leash a soft tug, Griffin didn't move. The couple walked closer. The woman smiled as she passed, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. The man gave a short nod and gripped the boy's hand tighter. Then Griffin barked sharp and loud. People around them turned to look. A few stopped. Someone pulled out a phone and started recording, sir. Ma'am. Neil stepped forward, raising a hand. Can I speak with you for a moment? The woman paused, still smiling. Oh, we're just in a hurry. Our train's leaving in 5 minutes. Neil gave a polite but firm nod. Understood. Just need to do a quick check. Standard security. The man didn't speak. His eyes flicked to the gate. The boy shifted slightly behind him. That's when Neil noticed something, a faint red mark peeking out from the boy's sleeve, like something had rubbed or tied too tightly on his wrist. Griffin barked again, even louder. The woman looked down at the dog. He's scaring the kids, she said, her tone a bit sharper now. Neil's gut twisted. He had seen families travel before. This didn't feel like one. He knelt down slightly to look at the girl. Her eyes were wide. Her mouth didn't move. He noticed something else. The little girl's pink backpack was too full, bulging in odd shapes. The boy's hoodie looked too big for him, like it was meant to hide something. Griffin began sniffing. The backpack, his tail went stiff. His bark changed again, short and firm, the way he'd been trained to alert when something dangerous was near. Neil stepped between the couple and the platform. I'm going to need to see your IDs. The woman hesitated. We're just traveling with our kids, she said, sounding annoyed now. I understand, Neil said, his voice calm but steady. Still need to see them. Reluctantly, the man reached into his back pocket. His hands were shaking just barely, but enough that Neil noticed. The woman dug into her oversized purse and pulled out 2 licenses. They looked clean, maybe too clean. Neil took them. The names matched, the photos looked right, but something about it all felt wrong, too perfect, too smooth. Where are you headed today? He asked. Atlanta, the man said quickly. Vacation? Just visiting friends, the woman added. Her grip on the girl's hand tightened. The girl didn't flinch, but she didn't blink either. Neil looked at Griffin. The dog stared at the backpack. Another sharp bark. Another crowd is forming. Neil's heart pounded. He had a choice to make: follow protocol and let them pass, or trust the one partner who had never steered him wrong. He looked into Griffin's eyes. They told him everything. Neil held the 2 IDs in his hand, but his focus kept drifting back to the kids. The girl, Sora, still didn't speak. She stood quietly beside the woman, holding tightly to her yellow paper crane. The boy, Noah, stayed close to the man. His eyes were wide, his jaw tight. He looked like he wanted to say something, but didn't dare. Neil stepped to the side and motioned toward the benches. Let's talk over here, please. The woman hesitated, then nodded. Of course, no problem. The 4 of them moved slowly to the corner of the terminal, away from the gate, but still in plain view. Griffin, still growling low, followed close behind. His eyes stayed locked on the pink backpack. Neil turned his radio down low and sent a quiet signal to Officer Jess Mercatho, who was on patrol nearby. Just in case, can I take a quick look inside the backpack? Neil asked, keeping his tone friendly. The woman Delia froze for just a moment. Then she smiled. It's just snacks and toys. She's 6. You know how kids are. I do, Neil replied. Still standard check. The man Marcus shifted his weight and gave a stiff nod. Fine, but make it quick. Delia slowly unzipped the backpack and held it open. Neil leaned in. Inside were a few toys. But something was off. There was a plastic bottle tucked under a stuffed animal. The label was scratched off. A phone without a SIM card. A roll of tape. Something small in shiny zip ties. Griffin barked again short. Loud alert. Where are you folks coming from? Neil asked, standing up straight. Just visiting family in Des Moines. Delia said, we're heading to Atlanta now. Funny, Neil said. You said Atlanta first, but not Des Moines. Marcus's jaw tightened. It was a short trip. Griffin let out a low growl and moved closer to Noah. Noah stepped back, clutching his sleeves. Neil saw it clear this time. A red mark around the boy's wrist. It looked like it had been rubbed raw, like something had been tied there too tight for too long. Neil crouched down slowly and spoke in a soft voice. Hey, buddy, are you okay? Noah didn't answer. He just looked away. Sora tugged her hand free from Delia and stepped toward Griffin. She looked up at Neil. Her small hand moved. She signed a word, just one. Help. Neil froze. He wasn't trained in sign language, but he knew that word. Griffin stepped closer to the girl, gently sniffing her backpack again, then gave a quiet bark one Neil had come to know as a warning. Something bad was happening. Griffin could sense it. Officer Mercatho arrived, her eyes scanning the scene. She stood off to the side, watching. I'm going to ask you both to come with us for a private check, Neil said, more serious now. We need to make sure everything's in order. Marcus looked like he was about to argue, but then suddenly turned, grabbing Noah's arm and stepping toward the platform. Stop, Neil shouted, reaching for his holster, but Griffin moved first. The German shepherd leapt forward, catching Marcus's pant leg and dragging him backward with surprising strength. Marcus fell, hard, onto the tile floor. Delia screamed, grabbing Sora by the wrist and yanking her away. The paper crane fluttered to the ground. Neil stepped in fast, blocking her path. Let her go, he shouted. Sora cried out, no words, just fear. Griffin barked again and charged toward Delia. She dropped the backpack and stumbled back. Neil scooped up the bag and opened it fully. What he saw made his blood run cold. A bottle of liquid sedative, rope, a burner phone, a folded piece of paper on it. 2 names, Sora and Noah. This wasn't a vacation. This wasn't a family. These kids were being taken. Neil's heart pounded in his chest. His mind raced. He looked down at Griffin, who stood ready, still growling, still watching. Good boy, Neil whispered. He reached for his radio. We have 2 suspects. Possible child abduction. The kids are not theirs. As officers rushed in, Neil knelt beside Sora and picked up her crane. She looked up at him, scared but trusting. He handed it back. You're safe now, he said. Griffin sat beside her, calm and steady. The storm had just begun, but the truth was out. Delia and Marcus were separated and taken into 2 different rooms inside the station's security wing. The kids were with paramedics, being checked out and kept safe. Neil sat across from Delia. The room was small and cold. The only sounds were the buzz of the overhead light and the soft breathing of Griffin, who lay beside Neil's chair, his eyes never leaving Delia. Delia stared at the floor, her hands in cuffs, her mouth tight. Her red coat was gone. Her smile was gone too. Neil opened the backpack they'd taken from her. He placed the items on the table, the sedatives, the rope, the burner phone, and the paper with the children's names. You want to tell me what your plan was? Neil asked quietly. Delia didn't speak. Griffin let out a low growl, not loud, but clear. Neil waited. Sometimes silence was more powerful than shouting. Finally, Delia whispered, They're not mine. Neil leaned in. I know that. So who are they? She looked up, and for the first time, Neil saw something in her eyes, fear, or maybe guilt. They were just a job, she said. We were told to get them on the train to Atlanta. That's all. Neil's jaw tightened. Who told you? She looked away. A man. We only met once. He paid us, gave us the IDs, said someone would meet us in Atlanta. Name? She hesitated. Griffin's eyes narrowed. He let out another low growl. Delia flinched. Ledger. She said finally, they called him Ledger. Neil stood up fast. He had heard that name before from a case file last year. Erwin Cross, also known as Ledger. was a known trafficker using fake shipping businesses to move children across state lines. This wasn't just a kidnapping. This was part of a bigger network. Neil left the room and rushed to the task force area. Inside, officers and DHS agents were gathering new intel. He shared the name and the details. A woman from the FBI named Agent. Rhodes pulled up a profile. Erwin Cross, alias. Ledger, she confirmed. We believe he's working out of an old freight hub near Atlanta. Uses fake manifests to move cargo. He's been on our radar for months. Neil clenched his fists. We need to hit that warehouse. Now, 2 days later, Neil stood outside a rusty warehouse on the edge of Atlanta. It looked abandoned, covered in vines, windows cracked, but inside, trucks were parked, lights were on, and the sting operation was ready. DHS, FBI, and local police surrounded the place. Neil crouched behind a crate with Griffin beside him. The German Shepherd was still and focused, ears up, eyes alert. Through a crack, Neil spotted a man in a clean shirt holding a clipboard. He looked like any regular office worker, but Neil knew this was Erwin Ledger Cross. Griffin growled softly. He's in there, Neil whispered. You ready? Griffin gave a low woof. The lead FBI agent signaled, go. Officers rushed in through all entrances. Yelling filled the air. Hands up! Don't move! Get down! Neil ran in with Griffin. Heading straight toward Ledger, the man didn't even flinch. He raised his hand slowly. This him? Ledger asked calmly, looking at Griffin. The mutt who ruined my shipment? Neil stepped forward. No, he's the one who saved 2 children. Ledger's fake smile dropped for just a second. That was all Neil needed to see. Handcuffs clicked into place. Officers spread through the warehouse. They opened one crate, then another. Inside were mats, food, and children's clothes. And then, one crate lock barked, met by Griffin again. And again, Neil opened it. Inside was a scared little boy, maybe 5 years old. He was holding something small and yellow. A paper crane, Neil's. Throat tightened. Another child, another victim, and Griffin had found him. It was almost midnight when Neil returned to the local precinct. He was tired, but his mind was still racing. So much had happened in just a few days. They had stopped 2 kidnappers, found a missing child in a crate, and taken down one of the top traffickers in the country, Erwin Ledger Cross. Neil sat at his desk, the soft hum of computers and printers around him. Griffin, his loyal German Shepherd, lay at his feet, resting but still alert. His eyes stayed open, always watching, always listening. Neil picked up a photo on his desk. It had just been taken earlier that afternoon. In it, Sora and Noah stood side by side, each holding a stuffed animal. Sora still clutched her yellow. Paper crane, a social worker kneeled behind them, smiling gently. They were safe now. Neil looked down at Griffin. You knew, he said softly. I didn't see it, but you did. Griffin gave a quiet woof, tail wagging once outside. The sky was beginning to lighten. Morning was on its way. Later that day, Neil sat with Agent Rhodes and a group of officers in a large briefing room. A big map of the U.S. was on the wall. Red dots marked cities where other children had gone missing. This ring was bigger than we thought, Rhodes said. Atlanta was just the center, but we believe there are other groups working in cities like Houston, Denver, and even Chicago. She turned to Neil. Your dog saved more than 2 kids. He cracked the whole system open. Neil gave a tired nod. Griffin's the hero. I just followed his lead. Rhodes smiled. That's what makes you a good partner. When the meeting ended, Neil walked outside with Griffin. The air felt cooler now, lighter somehow. Like the weight of what had almost happened was finally starting to lift. He stopped by the children's shelter where Sora and Noah were staying. They had both been placed with a caring foster family while their real parents were being contacted. As Neil walked in, Sora spotted him first. Her face lit up and she ran to the gate. Behind her, Noah followed. He still didn't speak much, but he gave Neil a soft smile. Sora reached through the gate and handed Neil a tiny folded paper. He opened it carefully. It was another yellow crane, this one with a little drawing of a dog on its wing. She had drawn Griffin. Neil crouched down beside Griffin. Look at that. He said, You got fan mail. Griffin barked once. Gently, Sora giggled silently, then reached out and hugged the dog through the gate. That moment. It was everything. Later that evening, Neil and Griffin sat on the porch of Neil's small house. The sun was setting. The street was quiet except for a few birds and the wind in the trees. Neil took a sip of cold water and looked out at the world. You. No, he said, glancing at Griffin. They train us to follow rules, to stick to the plan. Griffin tilted his head. But you followed your heart. The dog wagged his tail slowly, as if he understood every word. Neil smiled and scratched behind Griffin's ear. We make a good team, don't we? Griffin gave a happy bark in reply. Just then, Neil's phone buzzed. It was a message from Agent Rhodes. More leads are coming in. Get some rest. We'll need you and Griffin again soon. Neil sighed and looked at the sky, where stars were beginning to peek through. He knew this wasn't the end. There were more children. Out there, more people pretending to be parents, more hidden dangers behind kind faces. But now, thanks to Griffin, they had a way to find them. Neil stood and stretched. Come on, partner, he said. Looks like we're not done yet. Griffin stood, alert and ready, tail wagging together. They walked back inside, not just as officer and K9, but as a team who had saved lives, uncovered truth, and learned to trust something stronger than rules. Instinct, heart, and the silent cries only a dog could hear.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Love Tales of Tales, for long, heartwarming pets and animals. Love stories that stay with you long after they end.